Muses of Mythology is a spoiler-heavy podcast.
That's an understatement.
We're going to discuss not just the events of this book, but the Rhineverse as a whole, and really anything that we feel is relevant. You can find full spoiler warnings in the show notes. I'm going to get water. No, it's fine. No, I need water. Welcome to Muses of Mythology, a podcast where we explore how ancient myths become part of modern pop culture through the lens of Rick Riordan's Percy Jackson and the Olympians. This is Story 65, Thetis. I'm your co-host and podcasting muse, Darien Smartt. Joining me is my co-host and brother, DJ.
How's everybody doing today? I am the muse of being sneaky.
Interesting.
I don't know anything about Thetis. So.
It is the top of the episode. Let's muse around the garden for a minute, and then I'll come back and tell you all about her.
Awesome.
Hey everyone, it's a new month, which means it's time for our monthly Patreon donation. Every month, we donate $1 for every patron we have over on Patreon to some organization working to create a net good in the world. While June is Pride Month in the United States, here in Boise, we celebrate Pride in September. For reasons. Don't worry about it. The point is, this month, we'll be donating to Boise Pride. For over 3 decades, Boise Pride has promoted unity and celebrated the diversity of sexual orientations and gender identities in the Boise community year-round. If you'd like to learn more about Boise Pride, there'll be a link in the show notes. That said, we heavily encourage you to look up pride organizations in your area and find ways to support the queer folks in your community. Here at Muses of Mythology, we believe that every mythological retelling has value. And likewise, we believe that everyone's story deserves to be heard and celebrated. Thank you so much to our legendary patrons for making this donation possible. If you'd like to join this community and help us create positive impacts in the world, you can do so at patreon.com/Muses of Mythology. Thanks for everything, and now, back to the show. All right, DJ, you say you don't know anything about Thetis.
I don't know much about Thetis. I know that she is the
mother...
mother...
much, not anything. Oh, so you do know something.
I do know. I know that she's the mother of Achilles.
Yes.
That's like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know who her husband is. I don't know anything about her, honestly.
Do you want to expound?
Sure.
Slide, cocktail, expound.
Expound on what?
Oh, okay, she's the mother of Achilles. Do you know what that means?
She means she dipped him in the river.
There you go. That was what I was looking for. That's what we were looking for. Thank you, DJ.
Dipped him in the river, sticks holding by his ankle. Or heel. Whatever.
Yeah, because ankle's the little bump bone right there. Specifically, it was his heel right there. The Achilles heel. I'm trying to remember if Thetis is mentioned by name in the book.
I think Achilles shows, maybe not even by name, maybe he just says my mother.
That's the thing, right? I'm trying to remember. I flipped through earlier, so I wanted to ask you, because the reason, so Thetis does not appear, once again, we are breaking the rule I set up in the first episode, they have to appear. That was a silly rule.
Yeah.
That was 3 seasons, that was 3 years ago.
They have to appear in concept.
Yes. So the influence is felt. So Thetis does not appear, we don't get a flashback, we see Achilles at some point in time.
Yeah.
But
it's when they're approaching the river Styx.
Yeah, I wonder, does he say her name then? Okay, so he does say, talking about, he's like, oh, your failings will increase as well. You mean to have a bad heel? I said, couldn't I just, wear something besides sandals? No offense. He stared down at his bloody foot. The heel is only my physical weakness, demigod. My mother Thetis held me there when she dipped me in the Styx. What really killed me was my own arrogance. Beware, turn back. We'll explore that more in the future.
Yeah.
But okay, so she is mentioned.
All right.
But the reason she's a big deal, I would argue, in the Percy Jackson books, though it's not necessarily framed as such, is that to successfully perform this dip in the river Styx, this Achilles, the curse of Achilles that makes them invulnerable, is that Luke and Percy have to get their mother's blessings to do this. Mirroring Thetis being the one to physically dip Achilles in the wow, wouldn't it have been really interesting if we had to get Sally Jackson into the underworld?
You're the one who has to hold the rope.
Yeah. That would have been wild. Too much going on. We couldn't have Percy locked up in the underworld and stuff. No. If Sally was there, that would be crazy.
It'd be nuts.
Percy would never. But, so that's Thetis for the books. But let's get into it.
Okay.
And I feel like I'm going to be talking a lot.
You are the only, even like for pop culture, I don't think I've heard Thetis' name once, except for Lore Olympus.
Yeah, we'll get into that. Prefacing this will probably be a longer. Just DJ, feel free to interject.
Will do.
Feel free to try to continue to make this a conversation rather than a lecture.
Yeah.
So, Thetis is one of the Nereids.
Yep.
Which is the daughter of Nereus, old man of the sea. She's the sea is specifically the Mediterranean in this concept, and her mother was Doris, who was the daughter of the Titan Ocean, and she's one of Amphitrite's sisters.
Mm-hmm.
So we mentioned in a couple past episodes, I think an episode with Hera, sure Apollo's episode, Athena's, how the Olympians tried to overthrow Zeus at one point because they were just fed up. And they failed because Thetis got involved.
Mm.
This is something that's outlined in the Iliad.
Okay.
We'll circle back to that. And then another element is that some evidence suggests that Thetis was a prominent sea goddess in archaic Greece.
Mm-hmm.
So that would have been circa 800 BCE, which predates the Greek Dark Ages, which in itself predates that classical era of Greece. So this was a long, long time ago.
Yeah.
And so her name is linguistically associated with the Greek word for creation. And there's just some early archaeological things that suggest that maybe she was like a higher, like full, like prominent, like I said, creation goddess of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
We don't really have a lot to explore with that. I just wanted to mention it because everything else about Thetis is directly tied to Achilles. So let's get into it.
Okay.
All
Tell me
right.
about it.
It all started when Zeus and Poseidon both pursued Thetis, as written by Pseudo-Apollodorus. But a prophecy from either Themis or Prometheus or Calchas, the sources.
One of them.
One of them stated that the son of Thetis would become greater than his father, and not wanting to introduce a new god to the pantheon who would turn the whole thing upside down, Zeus decided, all right, well, she should marry a mortal.
Yeah.
So we don't have to worry about that. Specifically, he selected the mortal king Peleus, a grandson of Zeus, who's also a friend of Hercules, member of the Argonauts.
Yeah.
Not a terrible
Choice.
or at least a resume for a mortal king to have. But Thetis is essentially a sea goddess, a nymph, a Nereid, and she was not impressed with this mortal's pedigree. She had no interest in marrying him, so she refused. Of course.
Look, you just got to have one kid with this guy. Then we can maybe make this work, but just one fucking kid, okay?
Well, of course, it doesn't matter if you are a nymph and you refuse.
Yeah,
the
no,
gods
it
would
doesn't
decree
matter.
something. Yeah, it's like just one kid, and this is the first one, like Athena, right? Athena came along and didn't overthrow Zeus because she was a daughter, and then it was fine, and we have all the other.
It was wonderful.
Yeah, no. So either the sea god Proteus or the centaur Chiron told Peleus that he could find Thetis while she was sleeping on the beach and tie her up so she couldn't escape by shape-shifting. Just big yikes. Whoa, we hit it. So Ovid tells that Thetis tried to escape by turning into a flame, water, a raging lioness, and a serpent.
No idea how you even tie any of those up, except for maybe the lioness. But
right. Well, he tied her up, and then she couldn't escape because she was already tied up. But she tried to shapeshift into water. How do you tie up water? What did he tie her up with? Right. Yeah. No. It's distressing. Very wide range of abilities.
Yeah.
Like way last season, I had the episode of the depowering of nymphs about how we portray them as just like, oh, like hippie, like water nymph, forest nymph. Thetis is like she's like a top tier Nereid, like water nymph, but she like could turn into fire.
Yeah.
And a lion. So nymphs deserve way more cred than they are given. But she couldn't escape him. And all of this has like very bad vibes. But it was like totally chill at time because nymphs, when I say nymphs, read as women, had like no power and all. And to quote good friend of the podcast, Megs Peterson, were simply just bargaining chips for the gods, read as men, to just pass around to whoever pleased them.
Mm-hmm.
So ultimately, Thetis has no choice, and she has to marry the king.
Yeah.
And so I'd like to think that Thetis got a little bit of revenge on the gods, because her marriage to King Peleus is the same wedding that Eris and the Golden Apple show up at. Eris was goddess of discord and chaos, was not given an invitation to this wedding.
Nope.
Quite miffed about this. So she takes the golden apple, says to the fairest, and throws it through the window. And Athena, Hera, and Aphrodite, well,
they won it. And the rest is
won.
history.
Yeah, and the rest is history, which, history, if you've forgotten, they go to Zeus and be like, hey, man, you got to judge. And he's like, absolutely not. So he tells Paris, no. He's like, oh, we'll let Paris, this mortal prince of Troy, he'll pick. And he picked Aphrodite because Aphrodite said, hey, I'll let you have Helen, the most beautiful woman in the world. Don't worry that she's already married to the king of Sparta.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Don't worry that so many men came to try to like were her suitors, that her father was worried that the ones that were not picked would declare war. So he made them all promise that they would defend the union no matter what.
Yeah.
Don't worry about that, Paris. While I do like to think that this little bit of chaos and stuff was a good revenge for Thetis, it didn't last very long because it does, as you may have got from all of that, directly lead to the Trojan War.
And to the death of her son.
So a prophecy, another one, because this poor nymph woman's life was just plagued by prophecy, apparently, said that her son would either have a boring, long life or a bright, short one. And so she decided, well,
let's go down in the history books.
Yeah, I can make him immortal.
Yeah.
And now then he could have a bright, long life because he's immortal. So the Hellenistic poet Apollonius of Rhodes wrote in the Argonauta that Thetis set about stripping away Achilles' mortality by feeding him ambrosia during the day and then putting him in a fire in the nighttime. And this process took many, many days. And on the last day, just before it would have been successful, Peleus rolls up and he's very upset to see his wife putting their baby son in a fireplace. I say fireplace. It could have been a fire pit.
Yeah.
It could have been a bonfire. I'm not clear on the fire details. A fire. So he runs in and objects. So at this point, Thetis pulls the baby from a fire, kind of like tosses him away, and is like, fine, and vanishes back to the sea, never to return again. This is actually really similar to a myth about Demeter, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, get to that in the Demeter episode.
DJ, you may be like, that's interesting, because there doesn't seem to be a river involved in that myth.
Yeah. So
the contemporary version that audiences were most familiar with was actually written during the 1st century AD in Statius's unfinished epic, the Achilles.
Okay.
And this is the version where Thetis attempts to make him immortal by dipping her son in the river Styx.
All right.
But holding him carefully by the heel. And where her fingers touched and covered the skin were the only place he was still vulnerable. Why could she not have put him in a basket and dipped the whole basket in? Well, obviously, because the river Styx would have eaten away the material of a basket and then swept off the baby. She had to physically keep hold of him at all times.
That's funny.
Same reason she couldn't just wrap him in a blanket or have him wearing a little baby onesie and hold that. No. It would have eaten it all away.
All right. Dip. Change your grip a
just
little.
Just a dip, double dip. It's like a Dairy Queen chocolate dip. Dip again.
It's like a baptism, You
That's not what a baptism. What?
Have you seen the video where the priest is super aggressive?
That's not how you're supposed to baptize the baby.
It's like
not.
It's so funny.
So this could have solved a lot of problems. He's basically vulnerable, just one part on his heel. No one really aims for that part anyway. It's not a kill shot. He's fine. But Achilles couldn't.
But it actually kind of is, because if you hit somebody in the heel, chances are you're slashing their tendon, and then they cannot move that foot, and then they are just a downed goose.
This is a very good point, DJ. If you were fighting someone who you knew to be... Actually, it would be like if you're fighting Achilles, even if you didn't know he was vulnerable in his heel, you just knew he was really hard to kill, that would actually be a pretty good strategy to begin with.
Yeah.
Like, just try to down him so he can't keep moving so quickly.
Yeah.
Interesting. We'll talk more about that later. This episode is going to have a lot of... But we'll get to that later.
Yeah.
But Achilles couldn't be bothered to learn an ounce of humility. So Thetis had to be always on her grind, trying to protect her son.
Yeah.
Who just could not. Again, that's kind of what the Iliad is about.
Arrogant guy.
Yeah. We'll get to that later.
Maybe in our Achilles episode.
Maybe in our Achilles episode. Maybe in our Troy episode. No,
Iliad
they don't
episode.
Our Iliad episode. There are options. So when it became clear that Achilles would definitely end up fighting in the Trojan War, Thetis had Hephaestus make armor and a shield for him. Now, why would Hephaestus agree to do this for her?
They're friends.
Yeah, they were friends, DJ. Absolutely. This friendship was born from the fact that Thetis rescued Hephaestus when he was thrown from Mount Olympus as a baby. Or, sometimes he was thrown from Mount Olympus older when he sided with Hera against Zeus in a fight. Regardless, she rescued him and then actually set him up on the island where he created his first forge.
Oh, nice.
Thetis also aided Dionysus after he was chased out of Thrace by King Lycurgus due to Hera's scheming. So, Thetis, not talked about a lot, actually pretty prominent in helping.
Yeah, helping the gods.
Yeah, the gods and stuff. So Achilles has this great, made by Hephaestus quality armor, is invulnerable. They got Odysseus to come to the battle as, well, we actually talked about that in our bonus episode.
On Wine Dark Seas.
Yeah, mentioned that there. And things are going pretty good until, like I said, Achilles can't be bothered to learn an ounce of humility, or also just let anything go, just be chill.
Yeah.
So,
to be fair, he freaks out after his friend lover dies, right?
Okay, but that's justified. Yes. Listen, DJ, they were best friends in
and
every sense.
They were roommates, dude.
And they were roommates.
Oh my God.
We will get to that later. But that one is justified. I would say that one was justified we'll get to that later. What I'm talking about is that things are going pretty great for the Greeks until Agamemnon, who is the worst, yep, takes prize, an enslaved woman from Achilles. So this is like a war prize.
Yeah.
You recall in Last Olympian how Clarice is pissed over the flying chariot because Ares led the thing, but Apollo got the chariot?
Yeah.
It's like that, except for an enslaved woman who's being raped over and over again.
Yeah, it's a little rough.
Yeah. But Agamemnon decides, he wants her, so he gets to take her. And Achilles decides, he needs to reclaim his honor. Oh, no.
Which, again, first of all, Ares should have gotten the flying. They're the leader. They led the whole thing. Sure, Apollo might have secured it, but that doesn't mean anything. Not in a raid.
Not in a raid.
Continue.
Unfortunately for Achilles, Avatar: The Last Airbender and Zuko's amazing story will not be told for several thousand years yet.
No.
So he won't be able to learn that honor is this abstract concept that you take for yourself. It cannot be bestowed by others.
Yeah.
So he decides to call his mom up and ask her to have Zeus let the Trojans get the upper hand until the Greeks make up for the dishonor they did to Achilles.
Okay.
Yeah. Fucking wild, man. I don't know. And the reason he's like, Thetis, you'll be able to do this is because of that reason I mentioned earlier. That time Thetis showed up and saved, Zeus. I will now read a passage from the Iliad as translated by Robert Figgles.
Robert Figgles.
Mm-hmm.
Man's got a hobbit name.
It's got a hobbit name. All right, this is book 1, The Rage of Achilles. That day the Olympians try to chain him down, Hera, Poseidon, Lord of the Sea, and Pallas Athena. You rushed to Zeus, dear goddess, broke those chains, quickly ordered the 100-hander to steep Olympus, the monster who the immortals call Briareus, and every mortal calls the sea god's son Aegeon. though he's stronger than his father. Down he sat, flanking Cronus' son, gargantuan in the glory of all, and the blessed gods were struck with terror then. They stopped shackling Zeus. Remember that, now, and go sit beside him, grasp his knees, persuade him somehow to help the Trojan cause, to pin the Achaeans back against their ships, trap them round the bay, mowing them down, so they can reap the benefits of their king. Even the mighty Atreides can see how mad he was to disgrace Achilles, the best of the Achaeans.
Very prideful man.
Very prideful man. I wonder how that will work out for him.
Not great. As a matter of fact.
No, not great at all. And so Thetis doesn't love this plan, but she does simultaneously want to do everything she can to protect her son.
Yeah.
So she's like, okay, I'll go do that. Don't fight until I get back.
Yeah.
And he does, or he agrees. So we'll explore exactly how that plays out for Achilles later. But after Patroclus dies, the aforementioned best friend lover, Achilles wants to return to the battle, but does not want to leave his body for fear it'll rot in his absence.
Yeah.
So Thetis preserves Patroclus' body with ambrosia. And shortly thereafter, she once again has to protect her son by dealing with the gods, because they're super not pleased with the fact that Achilles killed Hector, who was the one who killed Patroclus. Actually, that part was fine. What they're not super jazzed about is after he kills Hector, he takes Hector's body, attaches it to the back of his chariot, drags it around the walls of Troy, and then refuses to give his body back to his father.
Absolutely cold.
Absolutely cold.
Imagine you're on the field and your best warrior is being dragged around lifeless on the chariot of another.
Yeah.
That is a cold ass entrance Achilles has performed there.
And it's just like everyone is like, oh, even the Greeks are like, oh no.
Fuck it up, Achilles. Just keep running it, dude.
At this point, because Thetis knows that Achilles will die shortly after Hector dies. Now Hector is dead. And so she is essentially already mourning him.
Yeah.
Again, gathered around her sat the other immortal sea nymphs, while Thetis amidst them mourned her brave son's fate, doomed to die, she knew, on the fertile soil of Troy, far from his native land. Quick as the wind now, Iris rushed to the goddess, urging, "Rise, Thetis, Zeus with his everlasting counsel calls you now." Shifting on her glistening feet, the goddess answered, "Why? What does the great god want from me? I cringe from mingling with the immortals now. O torment, never-ending heartbreak. But I shall grow, high degree from the Father, must not come to nothing, whatever he commands." And so she rolls up, and Thetis took a seat beside the father, a throne Athena yielded. Hera placed in her hand a burnished golden cup and said some words of comfort, and taking a few sips, Thetis gave it back. The father of men and gods began to address them. "You have come to Olympus, thou, immortal Thetis, for all your grief. What unforgettable sorrow seizes on your heart? I know it well myself. Even so, I must tell you why I called you here. For 9 whole days, the immortals have been feuding over Hector's corpse and Achilles' scourge of the cities. They keep urging the sharp-eyed giant killer Hermes to go steal the body, but that is not my way. I will grant Achilles glory and so safeguard your awe and love for me for all the years to come. Go at once to the camp, give your son this order. Tell him the gods are angry with him now, and I am rising over them in a deathless wrath, that he in his heartsick fury still holds Hector's body. There he breaks ships and will not give him back. Perhaps by fear of me, he'll give him back at once." So, so Thetis has to go, and she says, "My child, how long will you eat your heart out here in tears and torment, all white from your mind from all thought of food and bed? It is welcome to make love with a woman. You don't have long to live now, well I know. I already see them looming beside you, death and his strong force of fate. Listen to me quickly. I bring you a message sent by Zeus. He says the gods are angry with you now, and he is rising over them all in deathless wrath, that you in your heart-sick fury still hold Hector's body here by your beaked ships and will not give him back. Oh, give him back at once. Take ransom for the dead." And the swift runner replied in haste, "So be it. The man who brings ransom can take the body, if Olympian Zeus himself insists it in all earnest."
All right.
Yeah.
They just be like, "Bro, it's fine to sleep with women. Like, straight up. Like it's okay to do that too."
Well, he's basically telling him, "Hey man, you're gonna die soon. Might as well enjoy the time you have left rather than being in misery, because you're gonna die soon." So ultimately, Thetis can't save her son, and Achilles dies at the gates of Troy. This does not happen in the Iliad.
No.
We'll get to that later.
Yeah.
Thetis, her sisters the Nereids, and the Muses all mourn Achilles' death. And so most stories say that Achilles' ashes were then mixed with Patroclus's in the same vessel.
Mm.
But some say that Thetis took her son's body and carried it off to some far island where he could rest in peace for all eternity.
Understandable.
And that's Thetis.
That's Thetis.
Yeah.
Okay. She's an absolute bitch in Lore Olympus.
Yes, let's get to Lore Olympus. Thetis is not the nicest person in Lore Olympus.
It really, I guess I'm going to look it up real quick, but that's the only pop culture one that's coming to mind currently.
No, yeah.
Thetis.
No, yeah.
But I'm sure she's involved in other things.
Well, I did a dive. I did the digging.
Okay.
It's not a lot.
Yeah.
So, in addition to Lore Olympus, she is mentioned in Song of Achilles.
Okay.
Which I promise I will read before we do our actual Achilles episode. I just haven't read it yet.
Yeah.
But I do know she's in it. Largely as sort of an antagonist, specifically because she doesn't want Achilles and Patroclus to be together.
Okay.
Which feels like a decision that more reflects the kind of story Madeline Miller was seeking to tell. And less of a genuine interpretation of the way Thetis would have viewed the relationship in the myth.
Okay.
But again, I haven't read it, so I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I straight up can't think of anything that I've seen the name Thetis in. Like, actually.
Mm-hmm. She was in Clash of the Titans.
Of course she was.
Portrayed by Maggie Smith.
Okay.
Who won a Saturn Award for this. And this is like the original Clash of the Titans. She is essentially one of the main antagonists against the gods because she's pissed off about what happened to one of her sons. And so she's the one that's sending a lot of like her son is like
support to
her son and stuff. And in the end, the gods have to it only ends when she decides to back down.
Funny.
But yeah, wild. She also appears in Troy, which makes sense.
Yeah, it's about Achilles.
It's about Achilles. I've never seen it. Didn't read up about Julie Christie plays a Thetis in that one.
Nice.
Didn't see that one. Was less interested. I actually haven't seen the original Clash of the Titans, but it was Maggie Smith played her there, so I did do a deep dive into what did she do? Tell me more about that one. That one was interesting. She also is mentioned in the game Hades.
I don't doubt it.
So it's a dialogue option when Zagreus speaks with Achilles at some point in time.
Okay.
And she doesn't ever appear, although I would pay very good money to see what Thetis would look like in the Hades-style art, because everyone is perfect.
Awesome.
But there's a point in time where Zagreus asks Achilles if he ever prayed to the gods when he was alive. And Achilles tells him, no, he never prayed to the gods, but he did pray to his mother. And I thought that was a very cool line that I think accurately represented this.
Achilles sounded like a total mama's boy.
Well, yeah. But also, whenever things were breaking bad or things the only person he really could turn to who was divine was his mother, who's the only one who ever had his interests at heart.
Yeah.
Because the gods were all treating the Trojan War is just pieces going back and forth where they could go, and they didn't really care about any of the individual mortals. It was all just back and forth. Their own petty.
They cared about land.
They cared about land, but also their own petty, Hera and Athena are angry about Paris because the apple thing, and Aphrodite's on this side, so Ares is on this side, and Poseidon's pissed because they never paid him for that wall he built. But Apollo loves Troy, so Athena or Artemis sides with Apollo. But never was it about any of the mortals who were actually fighting.
Yeah.
So Achilles, who's this great warrior, the only divine guidance, the only immortal who he could pray to know that this person actually cared about his well-being was his mother.
Yeah.
So I really liked that line. All right, let's talk about Lore Olympus.
So Thetis and Lore Olympus, for those of you who don't know, it's just a bitch.
Yeah, she's not a nice person. She's a really bad friend. She's Zeus's personal assistant who he's actively having an affair with. Her end game is to try to get him to leave Hera so she can be queen of the gods.
Yeah.
She's friends with Minthi, who,
has her own fucking problems.
Who has a lot of her own issues. At one point in time, Minthi and Hades are going to like try to make it work.
Truly try to make it work.
Mm-hmm. And Thetis originally takes the opportunity to get Minthi drunk, so she misses the dinner date that she had planned with Hades.
Yeah.
And it's really mean. And going on, like, they also like try to go at Thetis like leads the charge to try to go after Persephone and stuff, and like bring about like this information about Persephone's past. And
a 10-year divide happens.
So then there's
she gets banished to the mortal realm.
Yeah, punished for her role in everything breaking so bad, and made to marry King Peleus.
Yeah.
So after the 10-year time skip, by the time we meet up with her again, she actually does have a baby. She has Achilles.
She's got like 3 or 4 years old. Like that's.
No, that's chubby baby. Not very.
No, he's walking.
Oh, but our nephew's not even 2 yet, and he's walking.
Okay, then he's 2.
Or maybe that. I think he's not even quite 1 yet, because we do see. Because she's talking, he's like, oh yeah, he's mortal, but he's kind of cool. And it's like, interesting.
Yeah.
Because there are other things going on in the more recent chapters of the webcomic that are implying we're getting...
I was like, did I even read last week's? It's on
No, we're on hiatus. We're in hiatus land right now.
Yeah.
But I think... Having now deep dove into like Thetis and her history and all the things she did and what she represented and stuff, I really, really don't like the way she's presented in Lore Olympus, because she is just so nasty and so terrible and such a bad person. And it's like, and her fate of the gods was to be like, because they were afraid her son would be powerful, forced to marry a mortal she didn't want to marry, and was tied up and assaulted on a beach while she slept.
Yeah, that's a little rough.
Yeah, and I don't know. Like it's like, oh, that.
You hate it, but at the other, you're at odds with our core philosophy for this podcast, where all interpretations are in fact valid.
I'm not saying it's invalid. Another thing I can say is that whilst they are all valid, I can still not like it because I don't. But while simultaneously, I think. Mayhaps okay, but then I was almost saying, like, I think now that she's got like Achilles, maybe she's gonna be better. She does try to get her cousin killed by Persephone by encouraging the cousin to have an affair with Poseidon.
Breaking and entering in the underworld and dipping.
We do literally see her
in the
dip her while she's like gets her cousin to go like try to be the new person.
There's a sign that says "Do not dip babies in the river."
Yeah,
so it's happened before.
I don't know whether that's just supposed to be a visual gag though.
But why do you think?
Why is there a sign?
Signs up?
Signs are only there because something else has happened.
Yeah, signs are there because it's happened before.
Yeah, wild, and everything is intentional in the way Rachel does Lore Olympus. So I am thinking. So my point I was trying to make before I got off on my own little tangent, very much directs. Like it seems like we're going to do a Trojan War. It very much feels like we're getting Trojan War.
It is. Things are bubbling. We got Apollo and his campaign.
Yeah, Cassandra's
I'm sure Poseidon's doing something because we haven't seen him much.
We haven't seen Poseidon in a while, and we have baby Achilles.
Yeah,
and so it's like. And Thetis mentions that, like, she doesn't seem to care about anything, but she very clearly cares about her son.
Yeah.
And so I am wondering if we were going to get, like, Minthi got, like, a character. I would call it, like, not necessarily redemption.
Growth.
Minthi got a healthy character growth path.
Yep.
Which I very much liked a lot.
Turned back from a plant around, I assume it's like 3 to 5 years, give or take in the 10-year divide.
Mm-hmm.
And then just had to spend 5 to 7 years in on the mortal plane with Persephone, essentially.
Yeah. I don't think they interacted much.
Around a bunch of like nymphs.
Yeah, a bunch of
overworld.
Yeah, a bunch of like mortal realm nymphs so she's like learned she's good at like taking care of kids.
Yeah.
And also I loved after the 10-year skip where Thetis shows back and was like, hey, let's pick up where we left off. And Minthi's like, no, you're toxic. You're bad friends. Like, no. I mean, I got work to do. Shows up because she's teaching a class on how to make a resume. I love it.
It's very
good. If Minthi got that, I'm thinking maybe we'll see Thetis getting that and like diving more into like how Thetis' relationship with Achilles mayhaps changed her.
She's going to continue to be manipulative and using Achilles as a pawn to try to get back to Olympus.
That would make me so sad. But I could totally see that.
Yeah, right.
But that would make me so sad. I would actively dislike, because I appreciate all the interpretations of characters in Lore Olympus, but if that's Thetis' endgame, I would make it, maybe just because I like Thetis a whole lot now.
Yeah,
maybe I like her a whole lot now, and I just want to see good things from her, and I think she deserves the most. And Lore Olympus is the one where she is like most recognized now, so I'm just like, okay.
Fair, she's not portrayed in fucking anything else.
No one else uses her for anything. Because she really just is, like, in the Iliad with Achilles. So if you're not doing Achilles, then why would Thetis be there?
Yeah.
So, which, fair, I get it. So I actually will give it to Lore Olympus for having Thetis around well before Achilles showed up.
Least.
Yeah, so actually I walk it back. I appreciated that. That's really all the pop culture ones. I just had a couple things I wanted to, like, reflect on a little bit. One thing I didn't note is that Thetis is, like, very involved in, obviously, the Iliad. Yeah, because of Achilles. But there's another divine mother who's involved in the Iliad. Eos, the Dawn, who's the mother of Memnon, an Ethiopian king who sided with Troy. Like, literally, Troy calls for help, and he shows up with the armies of Ethiopia. Mm-hmm. And Memnon and Achilles duel on the battlefield. And both Thetis and Eos rush to the battlefield to be there. And Memnon is slain by Achilles. According to, like, I don't think this is not in the Iliad. It's like outlined in the lost epic, the Aethiopis, which was composed after the Iliad. But Zeus was so moved by Eos's tears for her son that he made Memnon immortal.
Okay.
So while the epic was composed later, the idea of the two mothers being on the battlefield was, quote, probably a subject of a pre-Iliad epic song, because it also appears on the earliest mythological vase paintings.
Nice.
And in that, like, both, like, Eos and Thetis kind of represent the idea that, like, mothers cannot stop their sons from going to war. Even though they know they are going to die. They cannot, nor should they stop their sons from going to war, but they should still do everything they can to protect and support them, even when they know they're going to die.
Yeah.
And that seems like a very hard thing to do. And, like, but I think, like, Thetis is, like, really represents, like, this, like, likely cultural perception of motherhood in this, like, era of the ancient world. It's like, what do you think about that, DJ?
I think it's pretty good.
Yeah.
I think it would be appropriate for the times.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely wasn't the most peaceful of times.
No.
And, I mean, shit, there are plenty of people today that don't want their kids going off to war.
Yeah.
So and there's a much higher chance of them coming back today than there probably was way back when a simple cut can turn into an infection.
Bet. Yeah. No, that is true. I guess it would be like
you lose your leg on the battlefield today, you're an amputee now. You lose your leg on the battlefield in ancient Greece,
dead.
That's dead. You're not coming back.
Probably not coming back from that. Yeah.
There's a very low chance that is bacteria that they didn't even know existed in your leg all of a sudden.
Wrath of the gods on you. Yeah, sorry, friend.
No germology back then. Germ theory? What the fuck is that?
It was all the humors. Yeah, Thetis is just a really, like, tragic, sad character.
It seems like it.
She, like, did everything in her power, and it wasn't enough. And
it was a prophecy.
It was a prophecy. Yeah, it was a prophecy. And
Achilles decided to go to a war to shine bright and short.
Yeah, exactly. He does choose that. He chooses to shine bright and live short rather than have a long, quiet life. Mm-hmm. It's like, damn, okay. I also want to talk a little bit about how Sally Jackson and May Castellan represent Thetis in the Percy Jackson books.
Yeah.
I would say Sally's
the loving mother.
More so.
Sally is the loving mother and is the loving mother who has trust.
Uh-huh.
And May Castellan is the loving mother who can only see her son.
Oh my God. They literally are together. Thetis. Mace has the prophecies and sees the fate and knows the outcome. And Sally has done everything she can to hide and protect Percy his whole life. Thank you, DJ. Wow. That was like, I knew, like, well, they represent
there's
it
something
in, like,
there. Like, I know, like, Thetis did not have a healthy look at her son.
No, that's exactly it. Oh, shit. Yeah. Because I was just thinking about the fact that they are, like, the curse of Achilles casts them to be the Thetis role because they have to give him the blessing. But well before that, they are both independently taking parts in Thetis' role. So May being, she saw her son's fate, and it broke her So she
did
could not.
Yeah, she couldn't even do anything in her power.
Yeah,
to
she
try to
had
protect her
she
son.
had
She
no
can
more power
literally
to do
only see
anything.
her son and his demise.
Yeah, and that was essentially like kind of Thetis is like she tries to do what she can to protect her son, but because she knows his fate, her choices are influenced by that at all times.
Yeah.
And she still like gives him armor and stuff to protect him, and still like does this thing like to get Zeus to side with the Troy for a while. And all of that does like doing that leads to Patroclus dying, leads to like everything else. And it's like if she hadn't acted, maybe it would have been different. But because she knew his fate, she acted as such accordingly that directly led to his fate, like what happened with May. And then Sally Jackson doesn't know her son's fate, but does everything in her power to protect Percy before the inevitable, which is
but with him finding out and
going to Camp Half-Blood. But everything she does is in support of Percy, because Sally, while she knows there is a prophecy about her son, a child of the big three, will influence, raise, or fall Olympus, does doesn't
know the prophecy, or does she know that the prophecy exists?
I believe Sally knows the prophecy.
Okay.
I think Poseidon told her about it, because that would have been like why she was so trying to hide him from everyone. He's like, oh, you could just go to Camp Half-Blood, but he could never come back, because that would be safe for him. And she's like, I want to keep my son with me, which is the thing that Thetis wanted to do. She wanted to keep her son with her as much as possible and do everything she could to keep him safe. Like, marrying Gabe was to keep at her own expense. Like, oh, marrying a man like Thetis, who ends up marrying someone who's horrible. Well, maybe Peleus. Well, he tied a sleeping woman up on the beach.
He listened to the god, right? It's a god that told him to do it.
Yeah, I mean,
look. If all powerful God comes down and says do something, I'm like, shit.
That seems spectacular.
I like, it's a little rough, but this dude who can smite me if I don't.
Is it a god or is it an angel? Because we got our good omens rules, and maybe I don't listen to angels.
Is it a seraphim? Is this biblically accurate?
I'm
scared out of my mind right now. Be not afraid. You better believe I'm afraid.
Yeah. Ooh, you can't tell me what to do. You're not my god. You're a seraphim. You have too many eyes. But yeah, I think, yes, I'm going to give Rick credit for this, actually. Full credit. I think Sally and May are actively meant to be, like, I think...
different parts of Thetis.
Yeah, just like I think Percy and Luke together are kind of Achilles in some way. Luke a little bit more so, because he literally cannot learn to, like... chill to... He is so concerned about the wrongs that were done to him personally.
He cannot learn to let go.
Yeah. And
unlike Percy, who's like, people die around me all the time. Like, it doesn't matter.
I got bad things happen to me.
I got no ghosts.
He's like, I have learned to accept the things that are...
I am not haunted by my past.
Yeah, and I will try to change the things that I have my power to change. Whereas Luke is so hung up. And it's not even like the slight that was done to other... Because Percy is unhappy about the harm that was due to other demigods due to the gods' neglect.
Like, that shit sucks, but what the fuck am I going to do about it? And then he gets something. He gets a little power.
Yeah.
Like, let me do something about this
Whereas
shit.
Luke doesn't actually care about the way the other demigods have been mistreated. He cares about the slight done to him personally.
Yeah.
And that leads him, because obviously we all know fighting with Kronos is a shitty plan that's not going to help anybody, but it'll hurt the gods, and that's actually all Luke cares about, because he just wants to hurt the gods for hurting himself.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Good analysis of Thetis.
Yeah. This was enjoyable. Sally and May. Percy and Luke. They're all just all telling this story very well.
Yeah.
All right. I got nothing left. I think that's good. I could write a paper based on that.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, listeners, for joining us on yet another episode. What do you think? Did we get this totally wrong? Did we miss a really good portrayal of Thetis? I would like to think so. I'd like to think there's some good ones we don't know about.
I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, there's a lot of retellings of
Mm-hmm.
the Trojan War and just like everything else. So maybe we did.
Maybe we did. You can hit us up on Instagram. We are Muses of Myth. Or if you want to hit us up more instantaneously all the time and talk to a bunch of other listeners of the show, you can do so by joining our Discord, which every patron has access to. You can donate just $1 a month. You get access to all the Muse Myth episodes from last year and this year. Last night we did sit down and come up with our Muse Myth list.
We're very excited about it, and I hope you guys are too.
Yep, you get extras from all the episodes, weird tangents that don't make the final cut, and access to the Discord.
Yep.
If you got some extra drachmas, you can throw it a little bit higher, get access to the bi-weekly bonus episodes, our Remyth episodes, or just tell a friend about the show.
Absolutely.
Literally,
That
tell an
helps
enemy
us
about the show.
so much.
Share the show on your favorite social media platform. Make a TikTok about the show and send it to us.
And because Darien didn't say it, it's patreon.com/Muses of Mythology.
Thank you, DJ. I appreciate that so much. I appreciate you. Thank you for being my co-host and brother.
Of course. Thank you for being my co-host and sister.
All right. Well, until next time, everybody, be like DJ.
Don't be like Zeus.
Muses of Mythology is created and hosted by Darien and DJ Smartt. It's edited by Darien Smartt. The show is produced by Darien and DJ Smartt, as well as
Tim O'Connor, The Crystal Conman, Nicholas Miller. Our music is Athens Festival by Martin Hain, and our cover art is by Audrey Miller. You can find her on Instagram at bombshellnutshellart.
Want more Muses of Mythology? Support the show on Patreon. Just $1 gets you exclusive bonus content. Get more at patreon.com/Muses of Mythology.
You can also support the show by leaving a review at lovethepodcast.com/Muses of Mythology, or tell a friend why you love the show.
Don't forget to check out all of our episodes and episode transcripts at musesofmythology.com.
Thanks for listening.